Okay, so let's get started here. I've got some great setups for the weekly webinar to talk about. I spent some time today, as I was talking earlier before I started this recording, I try to do as little as possible on Monday because, you know, it's crazy to not have like a 4-day weekend, so I try to make that possible as much as possible. But I spent some time in front of the charts today, and I kind of narrowed down my... I looked at every chart I could think of, which doesn't mean I covered every single chart, but I looked at probably 25 pairs. 25 pairs. And I have narrowed it down to my 5 favorite pairs. So we're going to skip over a whole bunch of charts you're going to see on my screen, and we're going to go to the 5 favorite that I think are the best. Okay, before we do that, just remember, we'd love to have you guys join us for a live week of trading, and ultimately love to have you be part of the Day Traders FX family. You can see that you can get some free trials. You can get a free week-long trial. We have 2 levels, and you can get it right at that link, daytradersfx.com/about. And if you go to just regular Day Traders FX, you can just click right on Start Now. And it would appear that my screen, hold on just one moment, I think my screen might be frozen as far as the chat goes. So let's restart that real super quick and see what we have here. Okay, I think we're okay. There we go. And to answer a couple of quick questions, let everyone know, we meet, the Monday webinar is kind of the free-for-all, everyone can join webinar, but our live trading sessions and update sessions and so on happen Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 6 a.m. Pacific and at 4 p.m. Pacific. So that's 6 a.m., 4 p.m. There we go. Good one, Dave. Good one for sure. So that's what our live sessions are. We'd love to have you guys join us. You can get that all that information at daytradersfx.com. Okay, so this week, is that for real, Kevin? Robin Williams is dead? Really? Oh, that's sad. That's sad. I'm always traumatized when someone, this is just going to be a totally off-topic day of here's my go-to site. Suicide. Oh, how sad. That's horrible. Poor Robin Williams. Well, it's always sad to see someone go before their time. Well, thanks for the bad news, Kevin. But no, that is sad. That is. Yeah, I'm never happy to hear about death on any aspect. So. Okay, so back to this chart, back to the calendar, and we'll have 2 seconds of silence for Robin Williams. Okay, so not to be insensitive, but okay, let's get back to the week of news that we have going forward here. Okay, so we've got all kinds of stuff coming up, but it's not a crazy, ridiculous, heavy news week, but there is definitely enough stuff to get things going. So we have some good UK news, and we have some... we definitely have some good UK setups, or some pound setups, and so we have big UK news. We don't have a lot of heavy US news until about Wednesday, retail sales and so on, a little bit of bank holiday on Thursday, and then Friday we've got a kind of an average amount of news. So there's nothing too crazy to talk about as far as news goes, which is a good thing because I kind of hate those big news weeks. That we just have to wait for so many setups and so much crazy stuff. So I'm happy that we don't have that. Okay, so yeah, why don't I list that? Let me list my 5 favorite pairs for this week, and I better double check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think there we go. Okay, 5 favorite pairs are as follows. Let's see here. This is a little. So here's what I'm looking at this week. Euro dollar, pound dollar, Aussie New Zealand, dollar Swiss franc, New Zealand dollar. That's 5, right? Yep, okay, that's 5. So those are my favorite pairs this week, and I think we've got some really, really excellent medium to even longish term setups on all those. Now, keep in mind we've got a trade on the euro pound that we'll kind of keep an eye on and we may add to. I'm kind of more referring to pairs, to currencies that we're not in. We have a little bit on a couple different pairs, and I'll mention those. But as far as things that we're not currently in, all 5 of these look like really great setups. So let's start with the euro dollar and what I'm looking at here. I love the euro dollar in that it is making this nice big move. Here's a monthly chart, and it's just been bouncing around this channel, and it's come off the top of this channel so fantastically well. This is a monthly chart, remember, and it's coming off that excellently, fantastically, perfectly well. Here's one thing that I find pretty interesting, though, on euro dollar is I always pay attention to weekly and monthly candlesticks, right? Whenever we get a shooting star or a hammer on those larger time frames, it's really significant. I care-ish, I guess you could say, when I see that happen on a 1-hour chart or a 4-hour chart, and I definitely pay quite a bit more attention on a daily chart. But when we have it on a monthly chart, it's something to keep in mind for sure. So here we have a weekly chart on euro dollar and a huge hammer. This is a major hammer. We have this 70 pip wick right here, and then we have about a 25 pip body. That's a major hammer right there, and so we're coming down below it, to the low of it. Now the low here is about 133.30, give or take 2 or 3 pips. So it's about 50 pips below current market price. Now, what does that mean to us? It means that first of all, on this daily chart on euro dollar, we've seen a little kind of that short-term breakout we were watching, that little rising wedge or falling wedge, excuse me. But in this most recent move, kind of high to low of the last several weeks, month and a half or so, you can see that the euro dollar has just peaked above the 23% fib and it's heading back down again. Now, it hasn't opened above that 23% fib, and if it does, we fully expect to run into that 38. And that 38 is, there's a fib level, and there's a whole bunch of little pivot points. There's a daily, weekly, and monthly pivot, all within about 20 pips of each other. So I'm kind of eyeballing the 134.50 to 135.100 area, and you can see we're about 133.85. And so the question is, how are we going to play this setup? Now, the 4-hour chart, talking about all those bigger things we talked about, the 4-hour chart is about 120 bars out. So that's pretty significant. For those that are unfamiliar with my trading system, just know that that's pretty important. So we're about 120 bars out on this 4-hour chart, and that's looking pretty good. And so now what I'm watching for is I'm watching for some sort of double bottom of some sort here to get into this euro dollar longs. I'd like to see it come back down just a little bit more. You can see it's right about 50 pips on the dot from the 200, or excuse me, from the low of last week. So I want to see it get down there, double bottom, and then we're going to get long euro dollar from about 133, 40, 50 up to 134. 50, 135.100. So we should be able to get a pretty easy 100 pips on a dip here. So it's all about buying a dip and ultimately buying the bounce here of this euro dollar off that low and targeting as close to 135.100 as possible. And that's kind of, that's kind of my medium-term trade that I'm looking for this week. Remember, it's summer markets. Things can be a little choppy, and they don't move often as much as we, normally expect out of the currency market. So that's why I'm just looking for 100 pips to 150 pips right in that general area. So it's all hopefully going to come from this double bottom here off 133.30 area. So that's what I'm looking for on euro dollar. And in the meantime, I'm just going to let it chop around, but we would love to see a double bottom and a bounce happen there. So great little setup, okay, so pound dollar is another absolutely favorite setup. This pound dollar is looking so good. We've been talking about the move down into the 200 moving average. It's finally going to hit this 200 moving average, hopefully in the next several hours to day or so. The 200 moving average and the low of the last couple of months, which is right about 167.00. You can see we're at 167, 85 or so. So if we can get this down just another 70, 60, 70 pips, even 80 pips, I'm going to love it a bunch, and I'll be super excited about getting long right around 16700 to 167 probably 20. That should be the most excellent buying opportunity on this pound dollar that we can get. It's looking pretty good on the 4-hour chart. It's creeping up there, but the 1-hour chart is our big one that we are loving. I got a little trend line I'm keeping an eye on. Definitely, if it breaks above 168, 12 area, we'll probably get into that a little bit sooner. It gives us at least a 50 pip run probably up from there. But we can see at this 1-hour chart, which is looking super excellent, is about 300, almost 330 bars out on the 1-hour chart. So I'm loving this one a whole bunch. I'd like to get a trend line break or a break of resistance before I get long if it doesn't dip too much more. So that would probably be above 168.10 area. But if it does dip, if we get this anywhere near 167.50, or excuse me, below 167.50, it's going to kind of turn into a no-brainer trade from there. It's probably going to run down and hit these guys right here, but we're going to be just buying the heck out of it as it gets below that 167.50, as long as it doesn't first break up above 168.10. So hopefully that makes sense, but basically between 16700 and 167.50 area, we're going to be buying pound dollar and targeting about 168.50 to 16900. We have some pretty decent missed pivots here. So we have a weekly pivot here. We have a weekly pivot here. We have our current weekly pivot at 168.10. Anyways, it's just all looking super good. And I like this daily setup on the pound dollar. If it gives us a nice bounce up, up towards 170, I'll probably short, major short from 170 and see if we can get a big head and shoulders pattern, which I think we're going to get. But let's see if it bounces off that potential neckline right there, heads back up 100 or 200 or even 300 pips, and then we'll look for a big long-term short from that 170 area. But so far, pound dollar looks excellent, and we're focused on buying the dip or buying the break of this resistance. Okay, skipping all of these guys right here, let's get to Aussie New Zealand. Aussie New Zealand has a nice, if you look at this daily chart, there's a ton of resistance up here. Now, remember, New Zealand pairs are kind of coming off major strengths. So, the movement down is New Zealand's strength, and it's coming off of some pretty incredible levels. So I don't really want to be long New Zealand dollar too much, but a short-term trade, a sell trade, a short trade on this one, which would be long New Zealand dollar, short Aussie dollar. I like this trading against this double top. You can see we're at about 109.60, and that double top's about 110.45. So it's it's a little ways up here, 80-90 pips up there. If we get a bit of a run up into that area, I'm going to look for opportunities to short with stops just above that high. And most of the reason, the double top doesn't do a whole lot for me except give us a pretty clear stop loss level. But we're starting to get a pretty good looking 4-hour chart as far as getting a little on the extended side. So daily chart's not giving us much, 1-hour chart's not giving us much, but that 4-hour chart's looking pretty interesting. So I'll be looking for opportunities to sell Aussie New Zealand on the run up this week. So as it runs up, we'll be looking to sell that. And we may not get into it. If there's some wild spike and it just flies right through that level, then we'll just then that'll actually be better for our setup, and that'll give us a better entry at a higher price. So hopefully that happens, but that's a great little setup if it runs a bit higher. And gives us a nice little reversal up there. So definitely looking at and for that. Dollar Swiss franc is another favorite. The big thing I'm looking at on this dollar Swiss franc is we had this nice little rising wedge that broke out. Dollar Swiss franc, kind of bumped around here a good little bit, and then it finally finally made a nice upward movement and broke some levels. And you can see that it's kind of bouncing on this 90.33 area. Really having a tough time. I had a hard time getting above that, and it's having a hard time getting back below that. But we have 23% fib. We have a whole bunch of things right here. We have this rising wedge that broke out that seems to be holding. And we have a pretty decent overbought 200 moving average 4-hour chart setup. So basically, same thing as with the euro dollar, dollar Swiss franc, just the opposite. I want to see this rise a little bit, and I want to be able to get short with stops above 91.15.20 area, and I'd like to get short, as close to 9100 as possible, and target about just about the 90 level, 90.25, right in that general area. So it might be a little less than 100 pips. It probably will be a little less than 100 pips, 75, 80 pips, somewhere in there. But that's going to be a great little trade if this runs up to give us a nice sell opportunity to come down and hit some of these weekly pivots that are missed and this 200 moving average on the 4-hour chart. So again, up around 9100 should be a great entry with a target of at least 90.25, if not a little bit lower. So looking forward to that on dollar Swiss franc. Last but not least, New Zealand dollar. We've talked about this one a good little bit. And remember, we're not super anxious about getting long New Zealand. We don't want to be long New Zealand dollar. But, and I'm referring to the New Zealand dollar, not the New Zealand dollar US dollar pair, because we do want to be long that one. But the New Zealand dollar, we're not super excited about being crazy long, but there's some great corrective setups in the works. Remember, the New Zealand dollar is coming off major highs right here, all-time highs. We have a nice little train track right here on the monthly chart. Great little reversal pattern right there. We start getting below some of this 84.50 and beyond. Some of these levels, and this could really start to make a pretty decent run down. If it does that, we're going to absolutely be looking for some fantastic opportunities to buy these dips. The 4-hour chart's not looking amazing. It's 80 bars out, which isn't a crazy amount, but the 1-hour chart is looking super excellent. But what I want to see on this 1-hour chart and this 1-hour setup, remember, we go all the way back here. The New Zealand dollar hasn't touched in 450 bars now. Came really close right here, which was still a long time ago, 315 bars back. But if this New Zealand dollar continues to push these levels and gets down into this 84 kind of 100, 84.25 area, I'm probably just going to buy the New Zealand dollar at that point and just target some of these upper levels for, again, a 75 to 100 pip run. We've got a couple of nice missed weekly pivots from 2 and 3 weeks ago, and I think an 85, kind of 75 target is pretty realistic, 85.50 even. And so if we can get into this thing below 84.50, as long as it doesn't make a run up sooner, we get long below 84.50, ideally as close to 8400 as possible. I think this is going to be a great setup and should be a really nice 75 to 150 pip run. Now keep in mind, we're kind of biding our time a little bit here while the big trending movements happen. Things are just kind of up and down, and there's been some decent runs, decent setups, decent movements, but we're kind of just hanging in there, and we want to make sure that we don't look for anything too terribly long term just yet. Summertime always kind of holds the markets semi at bay. But we are definitely going to be able to get a lot of little 100 pip trades, and if we can make a couple 100 pips a week on some of these little setups, that's totally great with me while we wait for these bigger runs to happen. And we've got plenty of the bigger runs in the works, but right now it's going to be just countless 100 pip setups, which I'm super excited about. So those are my 5 favorite pairs. Again, I've looked at everything else, and I'm not super interested in too much of anything else right now. We are long euro pound, still hanging on to that one. That's looking great. Probably going to buy a little bit of a dip on that. And pound Swiss franc is looking pretty good as well. And several of the group members are in that. Some are not in it anymore. But the pound Swiss franc is looking good, and I do like this one, on this big daily setup. So I think we'll have some decent opportunity on this one. So I guess maybe I stretch it out to kind of 6 pairs. I do like this pound Swiss franc, and we'll hopefully be able to get back into this one sooner than later for those that aren't in it, and get some nice movements there. But really good setups this week, so I hope that a bunch of you guys that have not traded with us before can jump in and get a little piece of the action and see how we do everything. So I'd love to see you all with us. Thanks again for attending, everybody. I'm going to get this recording posted, and I'd love to take any questions or comments or talk about any pairs that I missed from anyone else. So let me know, guys.